Welcome, history enthusiasts. Today, we drift back thousands of years to the sun-drenched banks of the Nile, where pharaohs ruled with divine authority, where pyramids rose majestically against the horizon, and where the rhythms of daily life formed a complex tapestry of tradition, culture, and human connection. Among all aspects of life in ancient Egypt, one topic remains both intimate and fascinating: love and marriage. These were not merely personal choices, they were deeply woven into society, religion, and the very fabric of Egyptian civilization. To understand them, we must first immerse ourselves in the world in which they existed. Imagine walking along the bustling streets of an ancient Egyptian town. The air is filled with a mix of scents: the earthy aroma of baked bread, the fragrant smoke of incense from temple rituals, and the occasional waft of river water from the mighty Nile. Markets teem with life. Merchants display vibrant textiles, gleaming jewelry, and clay pottery, calling out their wares with voices both cheerful and insistent. Artisans bend over their workbenches, chiseling intricate patterns into stone, molding statues of gods and animals, or painting elaborate murals for tombs that will preserve their culture for millennia. Children laugh and run between stalls, while women balance baskets on their heads, expertly negotiating the daily chores and the ever-present rhythm of Egyptian society. In the midst of this vibrant tapestry of life, love quietly unfolded, often in ways subtle yet profound. Contrary to what some might imagine about ancient civilizations, where marriages were rigidly arranged and emotion was considered secondary, the Egyptians placed great value on personal choice and affection. Yes, family alliances and social considerations mattered, but the bond between two people could be a source of genuine joy, intimacy, and partnership. Ancient texts, poems, and letters etched into papyrus or inscribed onto the walls of tombs reveal that Egyptians expressed love openly and creatively. They wrote tender verses, exchanged gifts imbued with personal meaning, and celebrated each other's company in both public and private spaces. To truly understand love in ancient Egypt, we must consider the broader cultural context. This was a society deeply intertwined with religion, where the Nile dictated life itself. Its floods brought fertility to the land, ensuring bountiful harvests, while its waters facilitated trade, communication, and travel. In a world where survival depended on the cycles of nature and the favor of the gods, personal relationships were both a reflection of human desire and an extension of cosmic order. Love was not merely private. It was connected to the stability of family, the prosperity of society, and even divine favor. Marriage, in this context, was not a mere contract or obligation. It was a sacred institution. The Egyptians believed that harmony in the household mirrored harmony in the universe. Couples who respected and loved each other contributed to the balance and stability that society and the gods valued so highly. While legal contracts existed, they were often informal, based on mutual agreements and reinforced by social custom rather than rigid bureaucracy. A husband and wife's relationship was expected to be marked by loyalty, cooperation, and mutual care. In many ways, the Egyptian approach to marriage combined practicality with profound emotional depth, acknowledging that a happy household was essential not only for individual fulfillment, but for societal well-being. The role of women in this equation is particularly remarkable. Unlike in many other ancient civilizations, Egyptian women enjoyed rights and freedoms that were exceptional for their time. They could own property, inherit wealth, run businesses, and, importantly, exercise agency in marriage. Women could initiate divorce, negotiate terms, and, in some cases, play decisive roles in family and political matters. Within marriage, wives were not merely assistants or subordinates. They were partners in managing the household, raising children, and participating in economic and social life. This partnership approach allowed love to flourish not just as a sentiment, but as a practical, sustainable force within the home. Beyond practicality, Egyptians celebrated love in expressive, sometimes poetic ways. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of couples holding hands, embracing, and celebrating together, whether in life or depicted in tomb art meant to carry them into eternity. Funerary depictions often show couples side by side in the afterlife, suggesting that love, in their view, was eternal. Written correspondence, often preserved on fragile papyrus, contains intimate verses and declarations of passion, offering a glimpse into the personal lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. These expressions remind us that the desire for connection, intimacy, and affection is universal and timeless. Courtship itself was an art form. Egyptians employed subtle gestures, poetic expressions, and symbolic gifts to communicate interest and affection. Jewelry, amulets, and small tokens were exchanged as signs of commitment, appreciation, or admiration. Music and dance played a role as well. Festivals, banquets, and temple celebrations provided opportunities for young people to meet, converse, and form bonds under the watchful eyes of their communities. These rituals and practices highlight that love in ancient Egypt was deeply integrated into daily life, not merely a private affair hidden behind closed doors. Religious beliefs also shaped the understanding of love and marriage. Deities such as Hathor, the goddess of love, joy, music, and fertility, were central to both romantic and familial life. Couples often made offerings to invoke blessings on their union, seeking divine protection for their households and families. In this context, love was both human and sacred, a connection that reflected the divine harmony of the universe. Marriage was not only a social institution, but a spiritual one, with divine oversight ensuring that human relationships aligned with cosmic order. Daily life in ancient Egypt, therefore, was a mixture of survival, ritual, and interpersonal connection. Homes were simple but functional, with spaces for cooking, sleeping, and communal gathering. Families were central, not only for practical support, but for emotional sustenance. Love and partnership were intertwined with these daily realities, ensuring that the household thrived economically, socially, and emotionally. Children were cherished, but the relationship between spouses was not diminished by parenthood. Rather, it was strengthened as partners worked together to nurture the next generation. To understand love in ancient Egypt fully, one must also appreciate the cultural emphasis on beauty, adornment, and presentation. Both men and women took care in their appearance, using cosmetics, perfumes, and clothing to express identity, status, and attraction. These aesthetic practices were not superficial. They were integral to social interaction, courtship, and personal expression. A well-groomed individual conveyed not only wealth or status, but also respect for oneself and others, a subtle form of communication in romantic and social contexts alike. As we envision life along the Nile, it becomes clear that love and marriage were not static or uniform experiences. The rich tapestry of Egyptian society, with its hierarchies, professions, and customs, created a variety of experiences for individuals. A farmer in Thebes may have approached marriage differently than a scribe in Memphis or a priest in a temple town, yet the core values of affection, partnership, and familial duty remained remarkably consistent. The human experience, love, longing, joy, and companionship permeated all levels of society. Even death did not end these connections. Tomb inscriptions, funerary art, and preserved letters indicate that love was envisioned as enduring beyond life. Couples were depicted together in eternal poses, and prayers were offered to ensure that relationships remained intact in the afterlife. This vision of love as eternal underscores the depth of emotional life in ancient Egypt, revealing a society that valued both practical bonds and the profound human need for connection. In conclusion, the world of ancient Egypt was at once foreign and familiar. The rituals, customs, and religious beliefs shaped every aspect of life, yet the emotions that drove people, love, desire, affection, and loyalty, remain deeply recognizable. As we begin our exploration of love and marriage in this fascinating civilization, we see that Egyptians approached these bonds with thoughtfulness, creativity, and reverence. They sought connection, happiness, and harmony not only for themselves, but as part of a broader vision of a balanced and flourishing society. So, let us continue our journey along the Nile, where pyramids tower, temples echo with chants to the gods, and love in all its forms shaped lives, households, and legacies for generations to come. In the world of ancient Egypt, marriage was far more than a personal or private choice. It was a cornerstone of society itself. To the Egyptians, the family was the building block of civilization, and the harmony of a household mirrored the harmony of the universe. Understanding marriage in this context requires us to think beyond modern concepts of romance or legal contracts. Here, marriage intertwined with religion, social duty, economics, and the delicate balance of human relationships. The institution of marriage in ancient Egypt was remarkably flexible compared to other ancient civilizations. While we often imagine rigid arrangements dictated entirely by politics or wealth, Egyptian marriages were often guided by personal preference, mutual respect, and affection. Of course, practical considerations mattered. Families considered social status, wealth, and the potential for a union to strengthen alliances. But unlike in many contemporaneous societies, the Egyptians valued emotional connection. People had the freedom to choose their partners, and love and compatibility were acknowledged as important factors in the success of a marriage. Marriage agreements were surprisingly informal by modern standards. Legal contracts, as we know them today, were rare. In most cases, a verbal agreement between families or the couple themselves was sufficient to establish the union. Sometimes these agreements were sealed with gifts, symbolic gestures, or tokens of commitment, such as jewelry, amulets, or a small dowry. The emphasis was not on bureaucracy, but on social recognition. As long as the community understood and accepted the marriage, it was considered legitimate. In essence, marriage was a social contract, reinforced by custom, expectation, and the moral weight of family and community. Despite this informality, marriage carried serious responsibility. Couples were expected to care for one another, to raise children, and to contribute to the household economy. The concept of a household was broader than just husband and wife. Extended family members often lived together, and family connections influenced social interactions and economic stability. Marriage was thus both a personal and communal endeavor, binding individuals into networks of support that reinforced social cohesion. Egyptian society placed a strong emphasis on loyalty and mutual respect within marriage. Unlike some ancient cultures where husbands wielded absolute authority, Egyptian marriages often functioned as partnerships. Husbands and wives had defined roles, yet these roles were complementary rather than strictly hierarchical. The husband was traditionally responsible for providing for the family and protecting its welfare, but he was also expected to treat his wife with respect, affection, and fairness. The wife, in turn, managed the household, supervised servants if the family had them, and guided the education and upbringing of children. This partnership model fostered collaboration, intimacy, and practical efficiency. What is especially remarkable is the emotional dimension of Egyptian marriage. Love and desire were not considered trivial or secondary. They were integral to the stability and satisfaction of the union. Surviving letters, poems, and inscriptions reveal husbands expressing affection, admiration, and longing for their wives. Similarly, women expressed tenderness and devotion to their husbands. These expressions were not limited to the elite. Evidence from common households shows that emotional bonds were valued across social classes. Egyptians believed that emotional harmony within a marriage contributed to the overall well-being of the household, which in turn supported social stability and cosmic order. Children were a central concern in Egyptian marriages, but they were not the only purpose. Procreation was important for sustaining the family line, inheritance, and social continuity. However, marriage was not purely utilitarian. Husbands and wives shared companionship, support, and mutual affection. A home without love might survive materially, but it would lack the harmony that the Egyptians considered essential for a good life. Thus, marriage was both a practical and emotional institution, blending duty with pleasure, obligation with intimacy. The Egyptians also believed that marriage had a spiritual dimension. They associated domestic harmony with cosmic balance, a concept known as Mot. Mot represented truth, order, and balance, and it guided personal behavior, social structures, and religious practice. A harmonious household reflected Mot, while discord or neglect of familial duties could disrupt the balance of life. In this sense, marriage was not just a social contract, but a moral and spiritual one. Couples who respected one another, nurtured their children, and upheld the household's well-being were participating in the larger cosmic order, contributing to both personal and societal stability. Religious rituals reinforced marriage as a sacred institution. Couples might visit temples, make offerings, or seek blessings from deities associated with love, fertility, and family. Hathor, the goddess of love and joy, was a key figure in these rituals, as were other deities who oversaw childbirth, protection, and prosperity. Seeking divine approval for a marriage emphasized the belief that love and partnership were not merely human concerns. They were matters of cosmic significance. By honoring the gods in their unions, Egyptians believed they ensured not only the success of their household, but also their place in the broader spiritual and social order. Marriage also intersected with property and economic rights. Women in ancient Egypt could inherit land and wealth, and they retained rights to their property even after marriage. This legal autonomy gave women a level of influence within the household that was unusual for the ancient world. Wives could contribute to the family's economic prosperity, manage assets, and make independent decisions when necessary. Such autonomy fostered a sense of partnership and mutual responsibility, reinforcing the stability and effectiveness of marriage as both a social and economic institution. Divorce was permitted, though not necessarily common. When conflicts arose, couples could dissolve their union without catastrophic social consequences, reflecting the practical flexibility of Egyptian law and custom. Property, children, and mutual obligations were typically addressed amicably, suggesting a system that valued fairness and preservation of social bonds rather than punitive measures. This legal and social flexibility further underscores the Egyptians' pragmatic approach to marriage. It was important, sacred, and deeply meaningful, but it was also adaptable to the complexities of real life. Marriage in ancient Egypt was celebrated in daily life, not just marked by legal or religious rituals. Couples enjoyed companionship, shared meals, participated in festivals, and engaged in social activities together. Music, dance, and communal celebrations provided opportunities for bonding and expression of affection. The act of living together, managing a household, sharing work, and raising children was itself a celebration of partnership. This perspective reflects a culture that saw love, duty, and companionship as interconnected aspects of a well-ordered life. Art and literature further illuminate the nature of Egyptian marriage. Tomb paintings, reliefs, and inscriptions depict couples in tender poses, holding hands, embracing, or sitting side by side in harmony. These artistic representations were not merely symbolic. They reflected real cultural values. Funerary art in particular emphasizes the continuity of love beyond death, portraying couples together in the afterlife. Similarly, literary works and love poetry reveal the richness of emotional life, illustrating that affection, longing, and devotion were highly valued traits within a marriage. Love was both celebrated and codified in cultural memory, showing that the Egyptians understood the importance of nurturing emotional bonds. Marriage was also a tool for social cohesion. Families were the primary unit of economic and social organization, and marriage created networks that connected households, neighborhoods, and communities. The union of two individuals often strengthened social ties, facilitated cooperation, and reinforced trust within the community. Marriages were public acknowledgments of these bonds, making them both personal commitments and social instruments. By linking families and households, marriage helped sustain the social fabric and promoted stability across generations. It is also essential to understand the diversity of marital experiences in ancient Egypt. While certain ideals applied broadly, the specifics of marriage varied across classes, regions, and occupations. A noble family in Thebes would experience marriage differently from a fisherman in a village along the Nile. Yet, in all cases, the core values of partnership, affection, responsibility, and social duty were central. Egyptians across society recognized the importance of love and cooperation in marriage, even as economic, social, and spiritual considerations shaped the details of their unions. Finally, marriage was a preparation for eternity. Egyptians believed that life continued after death, and familial bonds extended into the afterlife. A stable, harmonious marriage was therefore seen as an investment not only in worldly happiness, but in spiritual fulfillment. Couples who honored their duties, supported one another, and nurtured their children were believed to create a legacy that would endure beyond their lifetimes. Love, loyalty, and mutual respect were not transient pleasures. They were eternal principles that connected human life with divine order. In conclusion, marriage in ancient Egypt was a deeply integrated institution, balancing practicality, emotion, spirituality, and social responsibility. It was flexible yet sacred, personal yet communal, passionate yet purposeful. Couples navigated the challenges of daily life while celebrating affection, companionship, and familial duty. Through marriage, Egyptians not only ensured the survival and prosperity of their households, but also contributed to the stability and moral order of their society. In doing so, they created a vision of love and partnership that was both timeless and profoundly human, a vision that continues to fascinate and inspire us today. As we step further into the lives of ancient Egyptians, understanding marriage as a social institution allows us to appreciate the depth and complexity of their civilization. It was not merely the construction of monuments or the codification of laws that defined them. It was also the everyday acts of partnership, affection, and devotion that shaped their world. Through marriage, the Egyptians expressed not only their practical needs, but also their hopes, their values, and their belief in the enduring power of human connection. As we continue our journey along the banks of the Nile, exploring love and marriage in ancient Egypt, it becomes impossible to overlook the remarkable role of women. In a world often characterized by rigid hierarchies and male dominance, Egyptian women enjoyed a level of freedom, respect, and influence that was truly exceptional for their time. Understanding the position of women in society and within the institution of marriage is crucial to comprehending the nature of love, family, and partnership in ancient Egyptian life. To begin, we must picture daily life in ancient Egypt. Women were central figures within the household. They oversaw the management of domestic spaces, supervised servants when present, and guided the education and upbringing of children. But their responsibilities were far from limited to the household. Women could own property, inherit land and wealth, and even run businesses independently. This autonomy provided them with both economic power and social standing, allowing them to participate fully in the life of their communities. Unlike in many ancient civilizations, Egyptian women had legal rights that afforded them opportunities to shape their own lives, influence family affairs, and negotiate their marriages according to their own wishes. Marriage, therefore, was not a one-sided institution dominated solely by the husband. Wives held a significant degree of agency within their unions. They were advisors, partners, and often the emotional anchors of their households. They helped manage resources, supervised labor, and made key decisions regarding family and property. In families where women were particularly influential, their counsel could shape business dealings, social alliances, and even political connections. In this sense, marriage was truly a partnership, a collaboration that combined the strengths and skills of both spouses for the benefit of the household, the family line, and the broader community. But beyond economic and social considerations, women played a crucial role in the emotional and relational dimensions of marriage. Egyptians understood that harmony between spouses was essential to the stability of both the household and society. Women were not simply passive participants. They were active contributors to the cultivation of love, loyalty, and companionship within their marriages. Surviving letters and poems illustrate this vividly. Women wrote tender verses to their husbands, expressing longing, admiration, and devotion. These writings, often intimate and deeply personal, reveal that Egyptian women were attuned to the emotional needs of their partners, seeking to nurture affection and maintain harmony within the home. Egyptian women also wielded influence through their involvement in religious and ritual life. They could act as priestesses or participate in temple activities, which allowed them to gain social respect and authority. Religious practices often reinforced marital and family bonds. For example, couples might make offerings to Hathor, the goddess of love, joy, and fertility, or seek blessings from other deities who oversaw childbirth, protection, and prosperity. Women played active roles in these rituals, mediating between the divine and the household, ensuring that both human and spiritual dimensions of marriage were attended to. Their involvement emphasized the sacred nature of love and partnership, demonstrating that marriage was not merely a social or legal construct, but a morally and spiritually significant institution. The autonomy of women in marriage extended to their ability to initiate divorce if necessary. While divorce was not the norm, it was legally permissible, reflecting the practical and flexible approach Egyptians had toward marriage. Women could request the dissolution of a union if it proved incompatible or harmful, and property and children were typically divided fairly. This right to leave an unhappy marriage underscored the recognition of women as autonomous individuals with agency and dignity. It also encouraged mutual respect between spouses, since both partners understood that their commitment had to be genuine, voluntary, and emotionally sustainable. Egyptian women's social freedom was further reflected in their public lives. Women could engage in commerce, manage estates, and participate in community affairs. Elite women sometimes wielded political power or influence in royal courts, acting as advisors or regents when circumstances required. Even outside the elite, women contributed significantly to the economy, supervising laborers, trading goods, or managing agricultural production. This involvement in public and economic life meant that women were not confined solely to domestic spheres. They were integral to the functioning of society as a whole. Within marriage, women's influence often extended to the education and upbringing of children. Mothers were responsible not only for the physical care of their offspring, but also for instilling social values, religious beliefs, and moral guidance. A mother's role was therefore crucial in preparing the next generation to uphold societal norms and family traditions. In many cases, women were also educators for their husbands, offering counsel, moral guidance, and emotional support. Their influence shaped not only the household but the broader social network, reinforcing cultural continuity and stability across generations. Egyptian women also expressed themselves creatively within marriage and social life. They composed songs, wrote poetry, and engaged in artistic expression. These creative outlets were not mere pastimes. They were avenues through which women communicated affection, demonstrated intellect, and asserted cultural identity. Love poetry in particular provides a remarkable window into women's emotional lives. Some texts include declarations of desire, playful teasing, or profound expressions of devotion, revealing that women were not silent or passive in matters of the heart. They actively participated in the emotional and romantic dimensions of their marriages, shaping relationships through words, gestures, and thoughtful actions. In examining women's role in marriage, we must also consider the physical and symbolic expressions of affection. Tomb paintings, reliefs, and artifacts depict women and men holding hands, embracing, or seated together in intimate, equal poses. These representations suggest that love in ancient Egypt was both physical and spiritual, and that women were acknowledged as vital participants in these bonds. The imagery of couples together in the afterlife further emphasizes the enduring significance of women in marital relationships. Women were not simply companions in life, they were envisioned as eternal partners, integral to the continuity of love and family beyond death. Marriage customs also highlight the collaborative nature of partnerships. While men provided for material needs, women ensured the household ran smoothly and that children were nurtured and educated. This balance of responsibilities reinforced the importance of cooperation and mutual respect. In cases where women managed estates or participated in commerce, they could supplement or even enhance the economic power of the family, further strengthening the marital bond. Marriage, in this sense, was a dynamic collaboration, combining emotional, practical, and social elements to create stability, prosperity, and fulfillment for both partners. The social freedom of women had profound implications for love and partnership. Knowing that women had rights and agency fostered a culture of mutual respect and negotiation within marriage. Husbands could not simply impose their will. They were expected to maintain trust, demonstrate loyalty, and cultivate affection. Wives, in turn, had the power to shape their relationships, influence household decisions, and ensure their own well-being. This balance contributed to a form of marriage that was remarkably equitable for its time, allowing love, respect, and partnership to flourish alongside social and economic obligations, religion continued to reinforce women's central role. Goddesses such as Isis, Hathor, and Mot represented fertility, love, protection, and cosmic order. Women's participation in religious rituals was not only spiritually significant but socially empowering. They could act as intermediaries, perform sacred rites, and invoke divine blessings on their families and marriages. These religious roles further reinforced their authority and influence within both domestic and public spheres. In essence, women were seen as vital conduits of spiritual and social harmony, linking the personal, familial, and divine dimensions of life. It is also important to recognize that women's roles varied across social classes. Elite women often had greater access to wealth, education, and political influence, allowing them to exercise power in multiple spheres. Middle class and lower class women, while perhaps less influential in public or political life, nonetheless held critical responsibilities within the household, contributing to economic production, child rearing, and family management. Across all classes, however, women were respected as partners, caregivers, and vital contributors to the fabric of society. Their agency and presence were universally acknowledged as essential to both family and community stability. Even in love and courtship, women played active roles. They could express interest, initiate courtship, and engage in romantic correspondence. Letters and poetry from women to their husbands, lovers, or suitors reveal playful teasing, deep affection, and sometimes even assertive pursuit of desired partners. This participation in the emotional and romantic spheres demonstrates that women were not passive recipients of male attention. They were fully engaged in shaping the experiences of love, desire, and partnership. Women's contributions to marriage and family extended to the afterlife. Egyptian belief systems emphasized the continuity of familial bonds beyond death. Tomb inscriptions and funerary art often depicted women alongside their husbands, holding hands or embracing, symbolizing their eternal partnership. Mothers were shown nurturing children, while wives were presented as supportive companions, underscoring the enduring importance of women in both earthly and spiritual dimensions. This vision reinforced the sacred and eternal nature of women's roles within marriage and family, highlighting their profound influence on both human and cosmic harmony. In conclusion, the role of women in ancient Egypt was multifaceted, powerful, and deeply integrated into the institution of marriage. They were partners, advisors, nurturers, economic contributors, and spiritual intermediaries. Their rights, freedoms, and responsibilities fostered a culture of mutual respect and partnership within marriage, enabling love, companionship, and collaboration to thrive. Women were not merely companions, they were central pillars of family, society, and spirituality, shaping not only the daily lives of their households, but also the moral, social, and cosmic order of the civilization itself. As we continue to explore love and marriage in ancient Egypt, it becomes increasingly clear that women were indispensable to the success and harmony of marital life. Their agency, intelligence, and emotional depth ensured that partnerships were both functional and fulfilling, balancing practicality with passion, duty with devotion. In the world of the Nile, women were truly the heart of home and society, vital to the legacy of love, family, and civilization. As we move further into the intimate world of ancient Egypt, we arrive at the ways in which love was expressed, through words, gestures, art, and ritual. While marriage in this civilization was grounded in social structure, mutual duty, and partnership, it was far from devoid of passion, tenderness, or personal expression. The Egyptians understood that love was not simply a functional aspect of life. It was a powerful force that shaped relationships, households, and even spiritual belief. To truly appreciate the expressions of love in ancient Egypt, we must first consider the cultural and environmental backdrop. Life along the Nile was shaped by cycles, floods, harvests, and seasonal rhythms. Social life, work, and religious practices revolved around these natural patterns. Yet, within this structured world, personal relationships flourished. Egyptians cultivated love not only as a private emotion, but as a visible, celebrated aspect of life, reflected in poetry, art, music, and ritual. This multidimensional approach made love both deeply personal and publicly acknowledged, a vital element in the tapestry of Egyptian civilization. One of the most compelling insights into Egyptian expressions of love comes from their written texts. Love letters, poems, and inscriptions provide a window into the hearts of men and women, revealing vulnerability, desire, humor, and devotion. Unlike in some other ancient cultures, Egyptians did not view the public expression of emotion as inherently shameful. Men wrote to their wives with words of longing, admiration, and even playful teasing, expressing the depth of their attachment. Women, too, were active participants in this literary dialogue, writing verses to convey affection, flirtation, or longing. These texts suggest that love in Egypt was not merely functional. It was an art, a medium through which emotional bonds were cultivated and maintained. The content of these writings is striking. Some letters describe physical longing and romantic desire, while others convey admiration for a partner's intellect, humor, or kindness. Gifts were often exchanged alongside words, small tokens, jewelry, and symbolic items that reinforced emotional connection. These expressions reveal that Egyptians understood love as a combination of emotional, intellectual, and physical engagement. A successful relationship required attention, thoughtfulness, and creativity, much like in the modern world. Love poetry in ancient Egypt offers another lens into these intimate dynamics. Poems written on papyrus or inscribed in tombs often include elaborate metaphors, comparing a loved one's beauty to flowers, the stars, or the richness of the Nile itself. These metaphors were not mere decorative language. They conveyed profound admiration and desire, reflecting a culture in which aesthetic appreciation and emotional expression were intertwined. Poets celebrated the qualities of their beloved: gentleness, intelligence, charm, and grace, showing that love in ancient Egypt was as much about personality and character as it was about physical attraction. Visual expression was equally important. Art played a crucial role in communicating love and affection. Tombs, temples, and household artifacts contained depictions of couples holding hands, embracing, or sharing intimate moments. These images are more than decorative. They are reflections of societal values, illustrating the idealized forms of partnership and companionship. Funerary art, in particular, emphasized continuity beyond death, portraying couples side by side in the afterlife, holding hands or embracing. This belief in eternal love suggests that Egyptians saw emotional connection not as temporary or fleeting, but as a force capable of enduring beyond the mortal life. Even everyday gestures carried symbolic weight. Physical affection, such as touching hands or a gentle embrace, was a common part of relationships. These small actions reinforced bonds, communicated care, and provided reassurance. Egyptians also valued attention to appearance, grooming, and personal adornment as expressions of love. Perfumes, cosmetics, and jewelry were not simply markers of wealth or status. They were tools for communicating attraction and desire. A well-groomed spouse was a visible demonstration of respect and consideration, reinforcing both romantic and social bonds. Music and dance were essential dimensions of love as well. Festivals, temple celebrations, and private gatherings provided opportunities for couples to interact, court, and express affection. Musicians played instruments, singers performed songs, and dancers moved with rhythm, creating an atmosphere that encouraged emotional connection. These communal expressions of joy and beauty allowed love to be celebrated publicly, intertwining personal desire with social participation. In this way, love was not merely private, it was an acknowledged and even celebrated part of daily life. Gift-giving was another key form of expression. Egyptians exchanged tokens that ranged from practical to symbolic. Jewelry, amulets, woven textiles, or small figurines could all serve as signs of affection or commitment. Gifts were often accompanied by words, poems, inscriptions, or spoken declaration, adding layers of meaning to the material gesture. The act of giving was itself a form of communication, demonstrating thoughtfulness, attention, and emotional engagement. Such practices indicate that Egyptians understood love as an active, ongoing process, requiring effort, intention, and creativity. Religious belief also shaped expressions of love. Couples often sought divine favor for their unions, offering prayers or making ritual offerings to gods and goddesses associated with love, fertility, and joy. Hathor, in particular, was central to the spiritual life of lovers, overseeing romantic passion, marital happiness, and childbirth. By invoking the divine in matters of the heart, Egyptians elevated love from a personal emotion to a sacred force. The intertwining of the human and divine underscores the seriousness with which love was regarded. It was not trivial, but a reflection of cosmic harmony and moral order. The role of women in expressing love is especially noteworthy. Egyptian women actively participated in courtship, writing letters, giving gifts, and engaging in playful or flirtatious interactions. They were not silent or passive. They shaped the emotional and romantic dynamics of relationships. By articulating desire, appreciation, and devotion, women reinforced partnership, nurtured intimacy, and ensured that marriages were grounded in mutual affection. Their agency highlights the collaborative nature of love in Egyptian society, where emotional connection was a shared responsibility. Expressions of love were not limited to married couples. Courtship and informal romantic interactions were culturally recognized. Young people met at festivals, social gatherings, or communal work events, using conversation, music, and poetry to explore attraction and compatibility. These interactions demonstrate that Egyptians understood love as a developmental process, a journey of mutual discovery, emotional engagement, and social negotiation. Personal choice and emotional resonance were valued alongside social or economic considerations, reflecting a sophisticated and nuanced view of human relationships. The aesthetic dimensions of love cannot be overstated. Egyptians celebrated beauty not only for its own sake, but as a means of expressing admiration and desire. Clothing, cosmetics, jewelry, and personal grooming were all tools in the expression of love, demonstrating care for oneself and one's partner. Attention to aesthetics was a visible language of affection, signaling respect, attraction, and consideration. Even in the simplest households, the presentation of oneself and one's partner reflected cultural values around love, partnership, and social harmony. Physical intimacy was also an acknowledged aspect of love, though it was expressed within culturally accepted boundaries. Texts and art suggest that couples engaged in affectionate touch, embrace, and sexual expression, understanding these actions as natural, joyful, and integral to partnership. Egyptians celebrated the physical dimension of love as a complement to emotional, intellectual, and spiritual connection, recognizing that healthy relationships encompassed multiple layers of engagement. Love was further immortalized through art and architecture. Tomb paintings, reliefs, and household objects often depict couples in intimate poses, sharing meals, walking together, or holding hands. Funerary inscriptions portray couples side by side in the afterlife, emphasizing the continuity of love beyond death. This integration of love into both the public and private spheres and into spiritual belief underscores the depth and seriousness with which Egyptians regarded emotional connection. Love was not incidental. It was a central pillar of human life, intertwined with family, society, and cosmic order. Even playful and humorous expressions were part of the culture of love. The letters sometimes included teasing remarks, clever wordplay, or humorous observations, revealing a sophisticated understanding of emotional nuance. Egyptians recognized that relationships required not only devotion, but also joy, laughter, and mutual appreciation. This acknowledgement of the lighter side of love contributed to the resilience and depth of marital and romantic bonds. In conclusion, expressions of love in ancient Egypt were multifaceted, creative, and deeply integrated into daily life. Egyptians communicated affection through words, art, gestures, gifts, music, and ritual, blending emotional, intellectual, physical, and spiritual dimensions. Love was celebrated publicly and privately, acknowledged in life, and envisioned in eternity. Couples participated actively, expressing devotion, admiration, and desire in ways that strengthened partnership, nurtured households, and reinforced societal and cosmic harmony. By examining these expressions, we see that love in ancient Egypt was more than a private sentiment or duty. It was an art form, a moral principle, and a sacred force. Egyptians recognized that emotional connection was essential to human well-being, familial stability, and societal order. Love was nurtured, cultivated, and celebrated, reflecting a culture that valued partnership, intimacy, and mutual respect. As we continue our journey through ancient Egyptian life, the evidence is clear. Love was not incidental to marriage. It was central. It was expressed in countless ways, from poetry and art to gestures, gifts, and spiritual practice. By understanding these expressions, we gain a richer appreciation for the depth, sophistication, and humanity of Egyptian relationships, and for the timeless desire to connect, cherish, and endure with another person. As we continue our journey along the Nile, exploring the lives of men and women in ancient Egypt, it becomes increasingly clear that love and marriage were intimately connected with family, children, and the spiritual dimension of life. In Egyptian society, the household was the core unit of existence, where the bonds of affection, duty, and loyalty were cultivated and celebrated. Understanding how Egyptians approached family life and the divine blessings surrounding it gives us a profound insight into the culture, values, and world view of one of the world's greatest civilizations. Marriage in ancient Egypt was often conceived as a partnership not only between two individuals but between entire families. The family unit, which typically included parents, children, and sometimes extended relatives, was the central social, economic, and emotional structure of life. Within this structure, children were highly valued, not only as heirs and caretakers of the household's legacy, but also as expressions of the love and union between husband and wife. Children were seen as a continuation of the family line, the living embodiment of parental affection, and a vital link to the spiritual and social continuity of the household. In ancient Egyptian society, children were cherished from birth, and considerable attention was devoted to their upbringing. Mothers, as primary caregivers, played an essential role in nurturing their children physically, emotionally, and morally. They taught them language, social norms, and religious practices. preparing them to assume their roles within the family and society. Fathers contributed by providing guidance, protection, and practical skills, ensuring that children were equipped to navigate the social and economic realities of life along the Nile. This collaborative approach between parents reinforced the bonds of love and respect within the family, emphasizing the importance of mutual responsibility and partnership. The desire for children was deeply intertwined with spiritual beliefs. Egyptians believed that fertility was not solely a human matter, but one overseen by divine forces. Goddesses such as Hathor and Isis were closely associated with childbirth, fertility, and family well-being. Couples frequently sought the blessings of these deities to ensure the health, safety, and prosperity of their children. Offerings, prayers, and rituals were common practices, reflecting the belief that divine favor was essential to the success of both the marriage and the family. In this sense, procreation was not only a practical or emotional matter, but a spiritual one, linking human love and desire with the will of the gods. The well-being of children was a central concern in Egyptian households, and parents employed various methods to protect, educate, and nurture them. Infants were swaddled carefully and kept close to the mother, ensuring safety and warmth. As children grew, they were taught practical skills such as farming, craftwork, or trade, depending on the family's occupation and social status. Education also included moral instruction, religious practice, and social etiquette, reinforcing the values of Mot, truth, balance, and order, which governed both personal behavior and societal expectations. By raising children within this framework, parents were not only ensuring their immediate well-being, but also preparing them to maintain social and cosmic harmony in the broader world. The relationship between parents and children was marked by tenderness as well as responsibility. Evidence from texts, inscriptions, and tomb paintings suggests that affection was openly expressed. Mothers and fathers were shown holding, embracing, or teaching their children, emphasizing the nurturing and protective dimensions of family life. Love within the family was thus a multi-layered phenomenon encompassing physical care, emotional support, moral guidance, and spiritual oversight. Egyptian families understood that a harmonious household depended not only on the love between spouses, but also on the love extended to children, creating a stable and nurturing environment for all members. Family life was closely linked with social and economic structures. Children often contributed to household labor from a young age, learning skills that would support the family's livelihood. In farming households, they helped with planting, harvesting, and tending livestock. In urban settings, they might assist in workshops, trade, or household management. This integration of work, education, and family life reinforced bonds between parents and children, creating a shared sense of purpose and mutual dependence. Children were not merely recipients of care, they were active participants in the family's economic and social success, contributing to the household's prosperity and stability. The significance of family extended beyond the immediate household. Egyptians believed that family ties connected generations across time and, importantly, into the afterlife. Ancestors were honored and remembered, and the continuity of the family line was seen as both a social and spiritual duty. Tomb inscriptions often included depictions of children offering gifts or prayers to their deceased parents, highlighting the intergenerational nature of familial responsibility. Love, care, and respect for one's family were therefore not confined to earthly life, but extended into eternity, reinforcing the spiritual and moral importance of family relationships. Marriage and family life were also closely associated with ritual and religious observance. Egyptians understood that divine blessings were essential for the health, safety, and happiness of their households. Couples and families participated in ceremonies, made offerings to gods and goddesses, and sought protection for their homes and children. Religious rituals provided structure, meaning, and reassurance, reinforcing the belief that family life was under the watchful eyes of the divine. This integration of religion into everyday family life highlights the profound connection between human love, social responsibility, and spiritual practice in Egyptian culture. The role of the mother was particularly central to both domestic and spiritual life. She was responsible not only for the physical care of children, but also for ensuring their moral and religious education. Mothers often acted as intermediaries between the household and the divine, invoking blessings, performing small rituals, and teaching children the customs and beliefs that would guide them throughout life. Fathers, while responsible for protection and provision, also participated in teaching practical skills, social etiquette, and ethical conduct. Together, parents created a balanced environment in which children could thrive emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. In addition to immediate family, extended family networks played a crucial role in social and emotional life. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins often lived nearby or even within the same household. These relationships provided additional layers of support, guidance, and education. Extended family members helped care for children, shared resources, and reinforced cultural traditions. In times of difficulty, they acted as mediators, advisors, and sources of emotional comfort. The extended family thus contributed to the stability, cohesion, and resilience of households, ensuring that the bonds of love, duty, and respect were maintained across generations. Egyptians also viewed the nurturing of children as a reflection of Ma'at, the principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order. Parents were expected to raise children in ways that promoted harmony within the household and the broader community. Neglect or cruelty was seen as disruptive, not only to the family but to society and even the cosmic balance. By fostering love, respect, and moral guidance, parents upheld both social and spiritual order. The care of children was therefore a sacred duty, linking human affection with ethical responsibility and divine law. The connection between family, children, and divine blessing was further reinforced by the Egyptian belief in the afterlife. Families invested in tombs, funerary art, and inscriptions that depicted children offering prayers, gifts, and homage to their deceased parents. Such depictions were not merely symbolic. They reflected the expectation that familial love and duty would continue beyond death. Parents sought to ensure that their children would remember, honor, and care for them in the afterlife, creating a spiritual continuity that paralleled the practical continuity of the family line. Love, responsibility, and devotion were thus eternal principles, expressed through both daily life and religious practice. Children themselves were seen as blessings and sources of joy. Families celebrated births with rituals, offerings, and public acknowledgement. Infants were often given names with significant meaning, reflecting the hopes, aspirations, and values of the parents. Names could honor gods, ancestors, or desired qualities, linking the child's identity with both family legacy and divine protection. The act of naming was itself an expression of love, reflecting the parents' intention to nurture, guide, and protect the new life entrusted to them. The education of children was also an expression of parental care and foresight. Parents imparted knowledge, skills, and wisdom, ensuring that children were equipped to navigate life successfully. Boys might learn farming, craftwork, trade, or administration, while girls learned household management, weaving, and domestic arts. Both were instructed in moral conduct, religious practice, and social norms. Education was therefore not simply practical, but also ethical and spiritual, reflecting the Egyptian understanding that raising children was both a duty and a labor of love. Affection within the family was further expressed through daily interactions and shared experiences. Meals, festivals, storytelling, and communal activities reinforced bonds between parents and children. Play and humor were recognized as essential to emotional development and family cohesion. Egyptians understood that love was not merely a feeling, but a practice, expressed through attention, care, teaching, and shared joy. The household was both a center of life and a laboratory for human connection, where children learned the values, behaviors, and emotions that would shape them as adults. Finally, it is essential to recognize the reciprocal nature of family love. Children were not merely recipients of care, they were expected to honor, respect, and support their parents. This reciprocity reinforced the moral and social order, ensuring that love, duty, and responsibility flowed in multiple directions. Acts of respect, service, and devotion by children strengthened familial bonds, sustained households, and maintained harmony both within the family and in the broader community. In conclusion, family, children, and divine blessings were inseparable elements of love and marriage in ancient Egypt. The household was a center of emotional, social, and spiritual life, where love was nurtured, responsibilities were shared, and children were cherished as both blessings and heirs. Parents cultivated affection, moral guidance, and practical skills, preparing their children to uphold social, familial, and cosmic order. Religious beliefs reinforced these values, linking human love with divine oversight and blessing. Love within the family was thus a holistic phenomenon, encompassing care, education, devotion, and spiritual connection, and extending beyond life into eternity. By understanding the centrality of family and children, we gain a deeper appreciation for the sophistication, richness, and humanity of ancient Egyptian love. Marriage was not only a partnership between two individuals, it was a commitment to the well-being of children, the stability of the household, and the favor of the gods. Through their devotion, care, and reverence, Egyptian families ensured that love endured through generations, through social obligations, and into the spiritual realm. As we reach the final part of our journey through the intimate and social world of ancient Egypt, we arrive at the concept of legacy, the enduring impact of love and marriage, not only on families, but on society and history itself. In Egyptian culture, love and marriage were not fleeting experiences limited to a lifetime. They were institutions intertwined with family continuity, social structure, moral order, and spiritual destiny. Understanding this dimension allows us to appreciate the profound way in which Egyptians viewed their relationships, not only as personal commitments, but as lasting contributions to civilization, culture, and the cosmic order. From the earliest times, the Egyptians recognized that marriage was more than a partnership for mutual support. It was a conduit for transmitting values, culture, and social cohesion. A successful marriage ensured the stability of the household, the welfare of children, and the harmony of family networks. In turn, these households were the foundation of neighborhoods, villages, and cities, each contributing to the broader social and economic health of Egypt. Marriage, therefore, was both intimate and civic in nature. It was a private experience with public consequences, a union that linked human affection with societal well-being. Legacy began with the family line. Children were the living continuations of a couple's union, carrying forward not only their parents' genes, but also their names, values, traditions, and social connections. The Egyptians placed great importance on the idea of lineage, viewing the family as an enduring institution that connected past, present, and future. Parents carefully nurtured their children, ensuring they were equipped with practical skills, moral guidance, and religious instruction. This preparation allowed children to continue family traditions, sustain economic prosperity, and uphold social and spiritual norms. In essence, love and marriage were investments in the future, with legacy as their ultimate reward. Beyond the immediate family, legacy extended into social networks. Marriage often strengthened alliances between families, fostering mutual trust, economic cooperation, and communal stability. Couples who raised respectful, capable children contributed not only to their household's future, but also to the welfare of their extended families and communities. The impact of a single marriage could resonate across multiple households, influencing trade, labor, social cohesion, and local governance. In this way, love and marital partnership were engines of social continuity, ensuring that Egyptian civilization remained resilient and harmonious across generations. Art and material culture played a central role in commemorating and perpetuating legacy. Tomb paintings, inscriptions, and reliefs often depict couples and families in daily life or alongside their children, emphasizing both relational harmony and continuity. Funerary artifacts, from jewelry to figurines, were intended to provide comfort and protection in the afterlife, but they also preserved the memory of familial bonds for posterity. Love, devotion, and marital partnership were thus recorded and celebrated in ways that transcended mortality, ensuring that relationships, values, and achievements endured beyond a single lifetime. The spiritual dimension of legacy cannot be overstated. Egyptians believed that life extended beyond death and that familial bonds had eternal significance. Couples and families sought divine blessings not only for immediate prosperity, but also for continued harmony in the afterlife. Deities such as Hathor, Isis, and Mot were invoked to protect households, guide children, and safeguard marital bonds. By honoring these gods through rituals, offerings, and prayers, couples ensured that their love and devotion would be recognized and preserved in both the material and spiritual worlds. In this sense, legacy was inseparable from spiritual practice, linking the ethical, emotional, and divine dimensions of life. Marriage itself was often seen as a moral and ethical foundation for legacy. Egyptians believed that a stable and harmonious partnership contributed to the proper functioning of society and the cosmic order. Husbands and wives were expected to uphold Mot, the principle of truth, balance, and justice, through their conduct, partnership, and family life. By cultivating affection, loyalty, and respect within marriage, couples reinforced ethical standards that extended into their households, communities, and even into their spiritual legacy. The love shared between spouses was therefore not merely personal, it was a reflection of the universal order, with far-reaching implications for both society and eternity. Children were central to this process of legacy building. They were not only heirs to property and social status, but also carriers of cultural knowledge, moral instruction, and spiritual understanding. Parents instilled in their children the practices, beliefs, and values that would allow them to maintain social cohesion, family honor, and divine favor. Education encompassed practical skills, religious knowledge, ethical instruction, and social etiquette, preparing the next generation to fulfill both personal and communal responsibilities. Through this careful cultivation, love and marriage became instruments for shaping the future, ensuring that the family's influence, values, and accomplishments endured beyond the immediate generation. The Egyptians also recognized the symbolic power of marriage in legacy. The unity of husband and wife was often depicted as a reflection of balance, harmony, and cosmic order. Tomb paintings, reliefs, and inscriptions frequently show couples side by side, holding hands or embracing, symbolizing their partnership as a microcosm of universal equilibrium. These images reinforce the idea that love and marital fidelity were not only personal virtues, but societal and spiritual principles. In maintaining a loving and cooperative household, couples contributed to both human and cosmic order, leaving a lasting legacy that transcended individual life. Inheritance was another important aspect of legacy. Property, wealth, and social status were passed from one generation to the next, often with careful attention to fairness and continuity. Women retained rights to their property and could pass it to their children, ensuring that families retained stability and influence. Inheritance was not merely transactional, it was symbolic of trust, responsibility, and continuity. By managing and transferring resources wisely, couples ensured that their family line would continue to prosper, reinforcing both social and economic legacies. Love and affection were essential to ensuring that this legacy was meaningful. The Egyptians understood that children raised in households marked by emotional warmth, mutual respect, and partnership were more likely to carry forward the values, behaviors, and social norms that sustained civilization. Marriage was not only a functional institution, it was a model for emotional intelligence, ethical conduct, and relational stability. The quality of affection and attention invested in the household directly influenced the ability of the next generation to preserve and enhance family and societal legacies. The concept of legacy also extended into cultural memory. Egyptian literature, inscriptions, and art frequently celebrated enduring love and marital fidelity, emphasizing the importance of preserving relational and familial bonds. These cultural expressions served both to instruct and inspire, reminding successive generations of the values that underpinned social cohesion, spiritual harmony, and personal fulfillment. Couples who maintained affection, respect, and cooperation not only benefited their immediate household, but also contributed to a broader cultural narrative that valued love, partnership, and moral responsibility. Spiritual legacy was further reinforced by the practice of ancestor veneration. Egyptians believed that the deceased could influence the living, providing guidance, protection, and blessings. Couples and families cultivated loving, respectful relationships, understanding that their conduct would ensure divine favor and continuity across generations. Acts of devotion, ethical behavior, and emotional care were therefore part of a larger moral and spiritual economy, linking human love to divine oversight and eternal significance. Marriage, love, and legacy were closely intertwined in Egyptian philosophy and daily life. A well-functioning household was not only a source of immediate happiness, but also a means of sustaining cultural, social, and spiritual continuity. Couples were tasked with nurturing affection, guiding children, maintaining ethical behavior, and seeking divine favor, all of which contributed to a lasting legacy. Love was both a personal experience and a civic and spiritual duty, blending emotional satisfaction with ethical and cosmic responsibility. This integration of love, marriage, and legacy is evident in both elite and common households. While social status, wealth, and political influence varied, the underlying principles of partnership, affection, and continuity applied across classes. Elite families could preserve their legacy through monumental tombs, inscriptions, and art, while common households maintained it through daily life, moral instruction, and family bonds. In all cases, Love and marriage were recognized as central to sustaining not only individual households, but the social and spiritual fabric of Egyptian civilization. The Egyptians' understanding of legacy also emphasized the intergenerational nature of human relationships. Actions taken in one generation, through marriage, child rearing, and ethical conduct, had consequences that rippled through subsequent generations. Love, devotion, and responsibility were therefore seen as investments in the future, ensuring the continuity of family lines, social networks, and cultural values.